Hey, Swedish Terapeut here. Um, I am going off the rails and off track from where I was. The last time we met, we talked about Dr. Sarah Sutton. She goes by Dr. Sally. She never liked the name Sarah, she said. So, Dr. Sally. And I wished her happy 94th birthday because she was born in 1927. And as we discussed her story, everything that happened to her throughout her life formed who she was. So, had she not gotten scarlet fever and had the doctor not climbed through the second story family window in order to treat her, she might not have become a doctor. Um, had she not have grandparents who lived on the land, and her grandfather was a farmer and never stopped. So he owned his own grain elevator and he came home and they made dinner from scratch from what was on the farm. So this is a long ways away from most um, Western educated, industrialized, rich, developed countries. And the United States used to do what the rest of the world did, and we raised our own food. Different now. So I woke up today with the hugest, most awful, terrible headache. And luckily, it wasn't a migraine, and I'm used to those. And I don't know if you can still see it, but I just got back from a massage, and I'm absolutely indebted to Lek, who's from Thailand, and she speaks Thailandska, and I speak Engelska. And somehow along the way, we have enough Svenska, Swedish, that we can understand each other. And she didn't have to do much, but she saw that my headache was huge. So, was it working with customers, clients for 3 hours yesterday? Was it the events of all of my mom coming to fruition? By the way, she's safe and she's in a retirement home and she's moved out of her other apartment. And I thank my dad for help and lots of other people. Or was it mowing the grass yesterday for an hour and having all the gray air, all the stuff that's in the air after mowing the grass? I don't know. I just know I felt like poo. So we're doing things different today. I'm going off script, even though Dr. Sutton was the in between with our Vätska 1 and our Vätska 2. We'll get back to Vätska 2. But lying there on the table and thinking about, I just have to let people know, dear common folk and young people, this is Swedish Terapeut. I'm just like you. I, I have a college education. I was taught to read. I can read a lot of English. I can read a little bit of Swedish now. But the education is the most important thing because it gets us to think. So we don't have to be spoon fed information all the time. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's not to say I know what's best, it's to help. You deserve to know information. And if I provide some information that resonates with you and you're like, oh yeah, here's my light bulb, it went off. If you decide that this is horse pahooey, great. I joke with my friend Kim in New York that I'm purple. I'm not blue. I'm not red. I'm a blend. My background comes from the Czech Republic, Slovakia, what one time the Austrian Empire, and a little bit of Welsh, some English, and German. And somehow I ended up in the United States because one of my grandparents at 14 years old, Susanna, came over all by herself with a trunk. And she made a home in the United States and settled in Michigan. So That's my great grandma. Let's move on. Do you remember? I am going to share the screen here a little bit. We talked about portion of the screen. No, that's not what I want you to see. We have talked about lots of different things. Yes, this is what I want you to see. So Lennart Nilsson has a book called Life, and he's a Swedish man. So in the episode You Deserve to Know My Mom Open Access Video Letter, this is episode E. It started in May, June, because there was so much going on with my mom that I didn't want anyone out there to experience the disintegrity happening with her. And my life started with her and my father. And I just think it's necessary for us to go back a little bit before we go forward. So who is Lennart Nilsson? Yes, Lennart Nilsson is an amazing man. And he's a Swede. And this was on the same presentation. It's from May 18th, episode E. And Lennart Nilsson is this man here. And that was a Wikipedia page. And he is a Swede who made that book called Life. And I am going out on a limb, and I'm going to show you some of the pages from his life book, because we've been talking about the Vätska being the in-between. Experience forms who we are. Everything that happened to Dr. Sally made her the doctor, the physician, the friend, the cook, the woman, the person she was. And luckily, I got the benefits of that. So if I can share anything with you, I just got done with a behandling, a treatment from Lek, the Thai woman, and I have another massage therapist, Annalie. Both are wonderful. They know my body, they listen, and I don't even have to say anything. So where does all this Vätska come from? Well, let's go back to the beginning. You're on a rice cooker right now. Uncle Roger would be really proud of me that my rice cooker is my holding up my laptop computer. But yeah, I think if I hold it up here. Yeah. So here's Lennart Nilsson's Book of Life. Lennart Nilsson was a photographer, and none of the subjects that he ever used in his camera photography were ever harmed. He has this book, and he has another book too. And the other book has the eyeball. And we can see in this picture of the eyeball, there's a lens, a solid, there's light that goes through, and the eye is a visual perception, but we have more than just the eyes for perception. We have so much more. And all of that liquid that's in there is important for how the eye functions. So these eyes can't function if they're dry. They will itch, they won't work as well, they won't focus as well. So let's get back to the beginning. So I'm standing at an angle, and what you're seeing here is from Lennart Nilsson's book. Books are for sharing. This is a fallopian tube. This is an egg, and it's going to be going into the fallopian tube in order to get pollinated. Dr. Jaapy van der Wal will use the term pollinated, not fertilized, and I like that better. So that is a human egg cell before sperm has met it. It's about as thick as one of your hairs on your head. That 1 micron, maybe, but it's big enough. the head of a pin. It's big enough we can see with our human eye, and it's one of the biggest cells that we have. Women have them. So, what happens after that cell, egg cell, gets in there? It waits. And you can see all of that around the egg cell. Boy, it just looks beautiful and voluptuous. And I can't say anything about the colors. I believe they're all real, but that's very much helping that egg give it a little home. And I wanted to show you the fallopian tube because it's beautiful. I wonder if I have that. I'm sorry, some of this technical difficulty will resolve itself, but there's some things that you just have to see. And I'm trying to find the fallopian tube. And I see so many other things that you can see. Oh yeah, I should have paused you, shouldn't I have? Okay, I paused. So that's the fallopian tube. So that fallopian tube looks an awful lot like a flower with petals. And part of my discussion with you today is we're not so much different than nature. For some reason along the way, we've gotten this idea that we're so much different or better than nature, and we are nature. So here is an egg, human egg cell, surrounded by sperm, ready to be fertilized. And you would think that all of those sperm would more than one would get in there, and but only one of them of millions. They say only one of millions gets in there, and this is sperm going against the flow and the mucous membranes and swimming. And what do those little guys look like up close? Whoa, what a great idea. Let's look at what the sperm looks like up close, because I bet you've never seen it, because you can't see it with the naked eye. So inside the yellow, right here, the text here says that that is DNA. And in that DNA, you don't see any X or Y chromosome. Supposedly it's in there, and I don't have any reason to doubt, but whether it's carrying an X or a Y, they all look the same. So how many of those little guys knock on the door and get to meet the egg? Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's identical twins. It happens. Here's the difference. Here's the size difference. Yeah. So the size difference is this is the egg, and this is a tiny little guy ready. It's almost like it's a Martian, and that is a moon coming up. So we're gonna pause you. And then a whole bunch of them meet, and they do their best, they do their absolute best to get in. And they say one gets in, but we know identical twins. And so maybe more than one gets in. And that is one of the little guys getting in. So how Lennart Nilsson with photography did this, I have no idea. And the truth of the matter is no one else does either. So what he performed and what he did was amazing. And here's the thing, all of that starts to form layers, and it comes in, there's so much liquid. Now I'm going to show you a picture. I think that will blow your mind. Love this picture. Now we're going to go back to the eye, and the eye has what's called the retina, and light passes through in order to go to the brain so it can process what we're seeing. So here we have a picture of light in the middle of the picture coming in onto the retina. So what you see here is layers in tissue and a blending of how solids and liquids happen so that we can have perception. And all of that information then goes to this beauty right here called the brain. And this beauty, you can see the two hemispheres right in between here is where they start to separate. These two hemispheres of the brain is an extension of the body. And all the darker lines you see in there are blood vessels. Yep. So how does that brain form? Well, it has to have an egg and a sperm pollinate each other. So let me put you on pause for a second. Are you ready? I see that the screen is moving an awful lot. So I'm going to help Uncle Roger be proud of me. And here's my rice cooker. And Uncle Roger, I'm taking the rice cooker off. Okay, so here, that's much better. And then it doesn't bounce so much. Oh, that is probably something that caused a little bit of indigestion. Do you want to see this egg? This is one day after the sperm and egg pollinate, and it starts division. And the caption that's right here says that now it's going to go to the uterus and implant itself so it can start a small life. But here's one day after, and then, and it keeps on going, keeps on dividing. Dividing. And there it is again. Divides. And that's 4 days. What does it say? 4 days, the morula stage, the clump consists of 25 to 30 cells. So that's just 25 to 30 cells. And it all came from the small egg and the even smaller sperm that has genetic DNA and the egg that had bacterial DNA called mitochondria. Mitochondria are so very important. And you saw all that red brain, so much mitochondria in the brain, so much in the heart. Oh, here's this great picture, 21 and a half days. "21 and a half days. Oh, there's a lot of light reflected on that. Okay, there we go. How's that? A little bit better? Doesn't look like much. 21 and a half days. So what I was wanting to do, oh yeah, is to show you the brain and the heart. So this is the start. This is 22 days. So you just saw 21 days, now 22 days. So it starts to divide and morph. So you have an, well, I'm not one to say what you're going to look at here besides what's on the caption. And 22 days. Primitive nerve cells are already in place in the brain. They say that the first fold of the brain is the insula. And according to Bud Craig, insula is where interoception happens. And interoception is how do you feel? So every emotion goes there. But I think the tissues of our body also hold emotions. And look, this is not so different. This is the brain up there, and this is the beginning of the heart. So even though our heart and our brain are often considered separate, they're from the same parts. I think I'm done. Isn't that fantastic? Yeah, just fantastic. Oh, no, I wanted to show you this little guy. Here comes the spinal cord. And this is 28 days. So a lot happens. A lot happens in just a few days. So in 28 days, which is 4 months. Yeah. That's the egg yolk sac. And you can see the spinal cord forming. And these are little flippers. So the skin, in Swedish Terapeut, all I want to do is make things a little bit simpler and not so complicated, because we live in this complex, complicated world. And granted, things are complex, but do they have to be as complicated as they are? And that little wingy ding that you saw, let's see how it forms into fingers. So we were at 28 days, which was less than a month. Boy, that was wrong of me. We were at 28 days, which is 1 month. I apologize. When we saw this, that was 1 month, 28 days. So now we're going to go to 11 weeks. So we've sped things up on that little wingy ding. So everybody can see, there's no doubt what you're seeing there. So in 11 weeks, this is what forms. And this is in no means to scare anyone away. It's just to show you how important the skin is. And whatever tissue we're talking about, the Vätska is the water around it, the liquid around it is so very important. And we have a tendency to forget how important liquid is and how important Vätska is. And it carries things. And so when Vätska is carrying things, it has hormones in it, it has fatty acids, it has enzymes, it has all these humoral factors that we'll talk about in Vätska too. I wanted to show you that, and I'm sure there'll be more. Will there be more? Yeah, I think so. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to share some more. So we have talked about our own body. We've talked about mammals. We've talked about ctenophores. We've talked about elephants. And we've talked about nature. And nature has certain boundaries, I guess. And we've talked about how a solid and a Vätska and a gas all combine. And essentially, we're really all the same thing. And I wanted to go back to this video that we discussed that in. Um, you deserve to know S. The S is for security system skin. And that was something that I did in June 11th. And the the security system, the skin is the security system for a ctenophore. So this is a ctenophore with bioluminescence, and this is a ctenophore without. And I don't know if you can see it, but I see the beginnings of the spinal cord. And ctenophores don't have any brains, but they have a nerve net. And their outer layer of their nerve net is called a epidermis. And then they have an inner layer of their nerve net, another epidermis. Basically, it's a skin. So it's the outside of his skin and the inside of his skin. And in the middle is their mesoglia. So between two layers is a third layer. There's an in between. And that is super important to take away for all you young people and common folk, because medicine right now is doing a lot to try to help people. And I think there's more for medicine to know, especially Western medicine, because really, Western medicine is very young, considering there's been people on the earth for a long time. Oh, yeah, we talked about this too. So, S is for security system. For 30 years, scientists thought that ctenophores pooped out of their mouth. I always thought that that was kind of fun. Come to find out, they actually they poop out of their poop hole. But it was new technology that allowed biologists to understand this. And like this day and age, there's new technology happening all the time. So, dear young people and common folk, think in a new direction, because you have my future and you have my daughter's future. And both of those are really important. I won't be here very long because my life is midlife. I have lots of things I want to contribute, but I don't know what my health will be like. I want to hang on to my integrity as long as I can. So I will leave you with two more pictures. We discussed this on Tomorrow for Major Tom. This is our spinal cord in the human body, and it's the autonomic nervous system responsible for our sympathetic and our parasympathetic states, our physiology. And I don't know how we can separate, but we have a tendency to separate things, our physiology and our psychology, our mood, our behavior, the way we think. It is so connected. And when we feel whole, we can make a much better decision. Now, last slide. Let's see. It's this one. Yeah. So, no. Yep. It was also in Tomorrow for Major Tom, and that's the YouTube address. You can type in Swedish Therapist, you deserve to know, T. But ctenophores, again, no brains, but a nerve net. Ctenophores, their body layers are, let's just say, skins, second skin, third skin, first skin. And they have a statocyst, very similar to our otolith that we have inside our ears. And our otolith helps us navigate the world and remain upright so that we know where up and down is. And if anyone's been dizzy, it is very hard to walk. So a ctenophore has a statocyst, and they're tiny little baby hairs. tiny grains of calcium carbonate. Okay, so there's a whole new world to explore out there. And there's lots of biology, and there's lots of conservation, and there's lots of ways to look at the world. And I just want you to walk away and say that we're all connected. And it's very easy to learn things in parts and pieces, but please put it back together again. Because I was Humpty Dumpty this morning, and my massage therapist, Lek Ongong, she put me back together again. So now I feel like I can have this conversation with you. So, vi ses. Hope you enjoyed it. And vi ses igen. We're going to see each other again for Vätska 2. Hej då!